You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 63. And oh my gosh, do I have a treat for you. Y'all, this is one of the best interviews we've had yet, and we have had some great ones, haven't we? I cannot tell you how much fun my conversation was with Maira Holzmann, a somatic therapist and business coach out of Denver, Colorado. Nor can I put into words the inspiration I know you're about to receive. You just got to hear it for yourself. And you've got to listen to this all the way through because the wisdom just kept coming to the very end. So good. So good. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Ideal Practice. This is your host, Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and I am thrilled to be with you today. I'm pretty happy. I just got back from a camping trip, which is so good for my soul. I hope you're doing some fun stuff this summer. It was my birthday recently, and I always find a way to be in the woods somehow when that's happening. So my wife and I went to a beautiful campground way up in the mountains in Southwest Virginia where there was no cell service. So we were completely off grid for several days, and it was really good for the soul, honestly, really good for the soul, which is a perfect way to move into our conversation today, where we're going to be talking about what it means to run a practice that is really good for your soul. Yeah. So let me tell you about our guest. Today, you get to meet Maira Holzmann. Maira is an LCSW who is honestly fired up and so excited about her work. She works at the intersection of being a seasoned therapist. She's a somatic therapist running a growing group practice in Denver, Colorado. And she's also a business coach for soul-aligned therapists who want to stop feeling overworked and underpaid and unappreciated. Can you relate to that? Does that sound familiar? With her extensive training in empowered somatics, healing trauma, and nurturing resilience, which by golly should be her middle name, Maira is dedicated to helping psychotherapists do good, live large, and thrive more. I just can't tell you what a delightful person she is. I had not met her before this interview, but she has a way of lighting up the room, and her own life story, her own practice journey is nothing short of inspiring. It has not been easy. It has not been easy, but it is powerful, and we can all learn from it. So let's get into the interview. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Ideal Practice. It is such a treat today. You and I both get to know somebody who's new to me. We've had one brief conversation, and I was impressed out the wazoo right off the bat. So I have invited Maira Holzmann to come on and talk with us about the process that she has been through. She's a licensed clinical social worker. Maira, I'm going to stop right here and let you introduce yourself. Tell everybody hi, where you are, what you do. Bring us on in. Come on in.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Wendy, for having me here. This is such a great opportunity. And I had a great time chatting with you during our initial conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm Maira Holzmann, and I am a somatically trained psychotherapist. And I run a group practice called Somatic Therapy Partners here in Denver, Colorado. So I'm a trained psychotherapist, and I'm also a business coach for therapists.
I love that. I can relate to that. Same thing here. Yeah, I love that. So I would love to know a little bit about, just tell me about the practice that you have right now, somatic therapy. Tell me what that is, what that looks like, what your practice is about. Let's start there.
Yeah. So my practice, Somatic Therapy Partners, is we do all somatic approaches to healing, helping clients heal from trauma. So my practice is really niched in that way. So it's mainly somatic therapy approaches and all different kinds. So I'm trained in somatic experiencing. My other colleague is trained in sensory motor psychotherapy. And then we just hired 2 new staff who are trained in different somatic modalities, which is really exciting.
Oh, wow.
And basically what somatic therapy is more of a dedicated focus to including the body as an ally in the healing process. Because especially with trauma, what we know is that it's not as much about the event of the, the traumatic event that occurred, but how the body, and in particular, the nervous system functioning changes and becomes less balanced and more dysfunctional because of that event or series of events. Sometimes it's not one event, it's a series of events like childhood abuse or that kind of thing. So that's really what we do. That's who in the Denver community people seek us out for, is because we really are focused on that. And, we're trained, I think, as all therapists are trained, we're trained in many modalities. We also do top-down approaches. And by top-down, I mean mind-based approaches, because of course we have to use our mind. And the somatic approaches are basically about including the body and helping a client learn how to inhabit their body in ways to overcome and resolve the trauma that's stuck in their body, if you will.
So I'm interested in that from a marketing perspective. That's a very different angle to take to the general public in terms of how you distinguish your practice from others in your area.
Yep.
And you're in Denver. I don't know if we said that or not, that you were in Denver, Colorado. And y'all, just to put this in perspective, she had snow this week and it was 86 degrees where I was yesterday. So we were we were comparing notes on that for a minute ago. So I'm hot and she's cold. So there you go.
That's right.
But tell me, I have 2 questions about this. One is, having a somatic approach as your primary sort of out front modality, has that helped you in terms of getting your practice off the ground and standing out as a unique sort of a different way of doing things? That's my first question. And my second question is, how do you explain that to the public and help people understand that? And have you had any trouble getting people to buy into that? Because I'm thinking I could see people having 2 reactions, like, oh, this is completely different, I want to try this. And I don't know about that part. I don't know about that. So I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. So from a marketing perspective, and I know we'll probably dive into this, but when I first started getting any kind of coaching, I had all my coaches were saying that the riches were in the niches. They were saying that in one way or another. And Peter Levine, who is the person who founded somatic experiencing, put somatic approaches on the map here in the West. He's the one that added the word freeze to the fight, flight, survival response. And so, interestingly, and I'll kind of answer both questions at the same time, people have heard about somatic therapy. And as a sidebar, but related, part of how I got into it is because I was working with eating disorders using mainly top-down approaches. We were using DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. All of these are really lovely approaches. And then I just kept watching clients, the recidivism rates, and I know it's eating disorders, which recidivism rates are high.
Yeah.
But they just kept coming back because you can't really heal the mind without including the body in the way that I view work, because if you think about it, there's way more nerve centers from the neck down than there are from the neck up. And yet all of us sort of rely on our mind to get us out of these pickles, when really there's this whole, body that is housing information and creating somatic patterns.
Yeah.
So when I talk about this with clients, especially, of course, we only attract the clients that are really interested in our work because our marketing message is really clear and it's really focused. So from a marketing perspective, I think it's one of the best choices I ever made, is to pursue this form of training. I remember I had a clinician who, when we were trying to hire, said, I don't have any somatic training, but I'd love to join your group and learn about it. And at that time we had a different hiring strategy. And I said to him, listen, go take these trainings. You can check out these 2 major schools in somatics, and it will make your career. And I meant it because it's such a dedicated niche. And then within somatics, there's so many niches that you can do. Like, there are clinicians who work with people who have just had motor vehicle accidents and help them resolve that trauma, or people who focus on relieving migraines. And, the thing that I tell all of my clients that show up, because especially the clients that look for me are the ones who have tried everything. They've been to
Yeah.
therapists for 4 to 20 years. They've gone to shamans. They've seen nutritionists, and they come in and they do this work, and they're kind of blown away because they recognized that the missing link was is that nobody really taught them how to live in their body during these high
Mm,
states of stress.
mm.
And so it just simply resonates with them. And then they get the results and they're just like, wow, I wish I had known about this approach a long time ago.
I love
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I just want to say I'm not, of course, denigrating any top-down approaches, because it's a synthesis of those two. Of course, I have to use top-down approaches.
Yeah.
And primarily what I'm doing when I'm working with clients from that somatic lens is really noticing what their physiology is doing. Where are they on the nervous system map? What are the signs and symptoms and sensations that I am seeing with a client or feeling in my own body that's telling me that they're maybe outside their window of tolerance or their ability to
Mm-hmm.
tolerate stress, and they're starting to go into adaptive survival strategies like shutting down and isolating, or turning to drugs. I mean, we know about these maladaptive survival strategies.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I want to sort of highlight is that you said, just as an offhand thing, our marketing is really clear, our message is clear, so people who need us can find us. Yeah, like, oh, well, there's a concept.
That's a concept. I mean, and I know we're going to dig into this, but it really vets people. I mean, the namesake of my business, Somatic Therapy Partners, that if you're coming to this organization, you are going to get somatic therapy.
Yeah.
And that makes it really easy, because then we don't have to work. We don't get calls from clients who are not interested in this approach.
Yeah.
And somatic therapies, along with psychedelic therapies, are just gaining so much attention in the world of therapy, as new modalities to try. And we need to evolve as a healing, healing community. And it can't just be.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an exciting time actually to be in this field, because there are so many different ways now of working that are new and incredibly effective and powerful. So I love that. And what works for one person won't work for the next, and vice versa. So when you offer something brand new that someone who's been trying and trying and trying and nothing has worked, and all of a sudden it clicks, that's the best feeling in the world. So your practice, you're building a group practice now, right? But this is still relatively new. I'm thinking, how long has Somatic Partners been in play? And tell me a little bit about your group as it is right now.
Yeah. So, I decided to hire another clinician in 2020 when I was working an insane amount of hours. I was seeing 25 to 30 client hours per week. And I work with deep trauma. I work with early trauma and shock trauma. And that was just way too much. And I had a colleague, and I decided to open up right before the pandemic, actually. So in February 2020, I opened up, and then we had to take a pause because everything sort of shut down. And so we've only been really going for the last 2.5 years. I mean, so we're a toddler.
Yeah.
That's the way I think of my business is, I'm growing this little baby. That's my business. And we're now a toddler, and we just expanded, which is exciting. That took us 1.5 years to get our hiring, all of the things that go into hiring and onboarding and interviewing and all of that. So right now there's 4 clinicians, and then I have an operations manager, and we're a pretty small outfit.
Yay for you. That's great.
Thank you. It's really
huge.
Exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's you plus 4 clinicians plus an operations person.
Me
right?
plus 3 other clinicians and an operations person.
Got
it.
We're
a 5-women outfit right now.
Love it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's exciting.
That's like Maira, that's huge within 2 years of starting. I think that's fantastic, actually. And there is so much to learn in terms of there's so much more to running a group than people realize. And there's so much that it requires of you as a person, as the leader of that team, and systemically, operationally. There's a lot that goes into that, which I've talked about some of that in previous episodes, but I don't think it ever hurts to kind of revisit that a little bit.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So tell me, let's just do that just a little bit. So tell me, what's the basic structure? So are these folks W-2 employees, or are they 1099 contractors? And what have you already learned? What through this process of this last 18 months, 2 years, what have you already learned about, good Lord, what it takes to do this?
Oh my gosh. That's a great
Yeah.
question. I will just riff on that. So, first, I'll just answer the easy questions, which is that everyone that works for me are employees. And that was a
W2.
really important decision I needed to make because for me, my mission and vision need to be aligned such that everyone that's working on my team is trained in a certain way. And with contractors, you can't really train them because a contractor is a contractor and they can do what they want when they
Uh,
want.
mm,
Right. And I wanted to make sure that everyone had the same foundation of understanding of how we support clients on every single part of their journey, from the first call to the time that they terminate with us. And that through line is, I should come up with a word for it, but it's, for me, it's the thing that sets my practice apart, is because I have this very specific point of view.
mm,
It's not that I need all my clinicians to practice the same way. They all can be somatically trained. But in terms of running the business, I want clients to know that that their journey is going to be good from beginning to end. I'll give you an example. So, one of the things that we don't do in our initial sessions is we don't do an entire biopsychosocial history. And the reason for that is because this is what I say to clients. I say I do it over the course of 3 or 4 sessions because I also want to be able to teach skills and learn your nervous system. And if I take all of this history, if I ask you about your entire trauma history, then all I'm really doing is supporting that trauma in sort of getting, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but in reinforcing that trauma.
Stirring it all back up again.
Yeah, stirring it back up again. So we have to do these in little bits. And so there are little points of view that are important that I needed all of my clinicians to be on board with. And I can't do that with contractors.
You have a specific process that you want them to go through.
That's right. And I want all of my clients to have a similar experience of like, this is how we do things. This is how you're welcomed. And to that end, my intake manager, who is also my operations manager, consistently gets amazing feedback. And I hear it from the clients that walk in the door about what an amazing opening process that was, to have this call and to have them be guided through. They have to answer questions, but I've also trained my operations manager to listen for dysregulation so that she can pause the client, slow the client down, and support them and teach them a skill. Right. So that they can ground, because as we all know, as clinicians, when people are showing up to your door, this is what I teach my clinicians about. That client has created an entire hero's journey. Like they've been on an entire hero's journey by the time they get to, just to even get to the call, much less get to your office.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thinking that I want to be able to train all of my clinicians with. So, some of the big learnings that I've had, because if you really knew me, you would know that I can tend to be impulsive. Like I've got these great ideas, and I can also be overconfident, thinking that I know more than I actually know. And it has gotten me into trouble so often, Wendy, I can't even tell you. And so one of the things that I've had to learn.
I'm laughing a little bit because I can relate to that. So that's okay. I'm like, I know what that means.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this will just work.
I could do this. Surely.
Yeah, no
How
problem.
hard can it be?
Yeah. And, the other curveball that created a lot of learning for me was hiring is different right now post-pandemic. A lot of clinicians during the pandemic got to be really successful because they could offer online therapy, and so there were not as many people that were looking to get jobs because they could do it on their own. And so we had to shift our hiring strategy 2 or 3 times, because originally I wanted people who were 5 to 10 years in the field to come and work, and I wanted them to be somatically trained, and those folks are already doing their own thing. Not everybody, but a lot of them that I know. And so we weren't getting any applications. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned, which is so helpful for me, and I think this might be helpful for your listeners, is because I had put a team in place. That's one of the things I had to do. It's one of my big learnings. But then once I put my team in place, I had to rely on them to do what they said they were going to do and what we talked about that they were going to do, so that I didn't have to do everything. Because I think that, my previous Maira, when she was opening up private practice, just believed and assumed that I could do everything. Even up until the point when I expanded and hired somebody else, I was like, I'm just going to do everything. It was it wasn't even a mindset. It was just the way that it was. And, we just finished this round of hiring back in at the end of February. And there were things where I was like, okay, here's the goal. This is your bucket, operations manager. This is your bucket, clinical lead. And I'm just going to trust that you know how to do it because I
Hmm.
trust myself that I brought good people. And so having good people and trusting them
Whoa,
to
hold
do
on to
it.
that. Wait a minute. I want to put a pin in that. Wait a minute. That was a good one. I'm going to trust that that you can handle, you know what you're doing because I trust myself that I bring on good people. I
10,000%.
love that because I think that's such a great way to think about this. I think one of the hardest things that we all do it all, and it's very hard to learn to delegate or to hand over parts of our work to somebody else. But if you're growing a group or you want to make a bigger impact, you cannot do it all. It'll eat you alive. But I trust myself to hire good people. That's confidence. That's well earned
Yes, it
and
is.
serves
Thank
you.
you.
I love that. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Mm.
and it really showed up for me because I could feel myself during the entire process being like, okay, what's happening here? And how's this? And did you create this? And show me all the things. And I would just be like, Myra,
Yeah.
you actually don't have time and capacity to do
Yeah.
that. You want to focus on these other higher priority goals. So trust your people. And they did it.
Mm.
They did it. Of
Mm.
course, they did it because, again, I trust myself and they're outstanding people who know how to do exactly what we talked about. So that was
Love it.
probably my biggest learning is like trust the people that you hire. There's a reason why you hired them. This is
Yeah.
not this. I'm no longer playing that game where I need to do everything. And the other
Yeah.
game that I'm not playing too, by the way, which I'm sure you can relate to, is that not everything has to be perfect. Like
Mm.
I can do the things and we can start the process without having it be super tight and just right and this way and that way. It's like, nope, this is good enough. So
Good
we're just going to
enough.
move forward with this.
Yes.
And that has
Yes.
served me a lot as I've grown as a clinician, as an entrepreneur in this field.
I love that. So I often call myself a practicing imperfectionist
I love that. Oh
because
my God.
I can obsess over the smallest details sometimes, and can make my own life way harder than it has to be. And sometimes there's a
That's right.
place for just jump, just hold your nose and jump, figure it out. You'll tweak it as you go, right?
Yeah.
Learn to love the tweak, as somebody said to me one time.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, learn to
Yeah.
love the tweak. So I love this. So you're um, just hearing this, I have to tell you, you sound so sophisticated. I'm going to say
Wow.
that. So sophisticated. I have my operations manager, my intake manager, who absolutely like teaches people a skill while they're calling it. How awesome is that? And then I have my clinical lead, which I adore. It's awesome.
I will take that.
I mean, I'm telling you. And I know that it hasn't always been this way, that you have been through a lot to get here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the process, like sort of the curvy road that it has taken to get you where you are today? Because you're doing great, and I love it. And I know
you.
you've got new things on the horizon we'll talk about too, but it hasn't been easy. So share a little bit about that with us, if you would.
Absolutely. So, and I do really appreciate you asking this question because I know that I do this. I look at people who are in places of success where I want to be, and I'm just like, well, they must be smarter, or they must just have more support, or they've got particular skills in marketing or whatever that
Yeah.
they could build this massive group practice. And I want to tell you and all your listeners, I failed 3 times in private practice. And by
Wow.
failed, I mean,
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that mean? What do you mean
so
failed? Yeah.
failed means I never got a full caseload the way that I wanted to. I was never getting paid what I wanted to. I kept trying to over deliver by basically getting paid less because I was afraid that clients wouldn't come if I didn't, if I didn't take insurance or if I didn't charge something that was sort of at the market rate for wherever I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a painful 3 times to fail. And so that was a big piece of my learning is just figuring out that I can't, back to this idea that I can't do everything myself. I mean, I'm a trained therapist. I'm not a trained marketer or business person or, I never took any of those skills.
Right.
And so, part of the turning point for me was finally investing in a coaching program. And then I launched. I mean, Wendy, I launched bigger than I could have imagined. And this was 6 years of trying to do private practice from 2010 to 2016.
So did you go into practice and then go back to get an agency job and then back into practice and somewhere else? Like kind of, okay. So you would start it and go, this isn't working, close it, go get a job and back.
Yeah.
And what wasn't working was that you were either seeing the wrong kind of people, working way too hard, not making nearly enough money, wearing yourself out, and it like you weren't having any fun and it wasn't doing much good. Is that right? Am I hearing that right?
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And I also just had these ideas about what was going to happen. Like here was my first idea, right?
Yeah.
Talking about, sort of, I was chuckling earlier when we were talking about how we could obsess over these little details. The first website I ever put up with a business partner that I had, the name of that business was called Chrysalis Rising. Okay, that doesn't tell you anything about anything.
Yes.
So let me just start there. Like Chrysalis Rising. So I just figured if we wrote up this beautiful website that took us 3 weeks to write because we were obsessing over every period and comma and the order of things, that if we just slapped it up, people would find us. And
people, wait a minute, y'all. I want listeners, y'all tune into this. I want you to notice this, like this story, Chrysalis Rising. How beautiful is that? We love the metaphor.
Yeah.
And a lot of us who are drawn to this kind of work tend to be more creative, more heart-centered people. Of course, we love a metaphor. I love a good metaphor. And from a marketing point of view, it does not serve you. Like, don't be clever, be clear.
Yeah.
Don't be clever, be clever.
That's a great one. Yeah. And we just thought we were so smart and we were so loving and we poured our heart and our soul into this website and then nothing. Like, I think maybe we got 2 calls, and that's only because people who were already in that program told their friends to give us a call, but it wasn't because they found us on the website.
Yeah.
And the business path, I think, for therapists, if you want it to be, can be really exciting and really an opportunity for you to fill up your coffers of wisdom and experience. And, there are so many times that I wanted to quit. 3 failed private practices does not sound awesome. That does not sound like something you want to keep doing. And you're right. I did. I went back into agency work because I could, and it was fine. And I'm so glad that I decided to take the risk and invest way more money than I had at the time into my first coaching program. And literally from day one, Wendy, I just realized how much I didn't know. And that one piece of information and specifically about marketing.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching the first 2 or 3 videos after the welcome video. And I was like, wow, I didn't know anything. I was so silly back in the day thinking if you just slap up a website, people will come find you.
So, that's a small thing. It's an important thing, but it is a great, pretty common example of some of the kind of mistakes that if you don't know, you don't know. And they don't teach us that in grad school, right?
That's right.
So did you, I'm curious about this transition. You were in and out of practice. You kept trying. Kudos to you. Because a lot of folks, after they try one time, would be like, I'm obviously not cut out for this, right? Yeah, all the self-talk happens. The fact that you kept coming back is also impressive, Maira. Really, I love that. Thanks. And somewhere along the way, you decided, I've got to get some help, and you hired a coach. I can relate to that too. I have done the same thing. Did you know people who had worked with coaches before? Where did that come from? And what was that like for you? What did that feel like to even make that decision? Pay somebody.
It's a really good question. So I'm bringing myself back to when I was at the agency that I was working at, and I used to work in eating disorders. And part of what kept growing for me, first of all, was the dissatisfaction. And I wasn't even working full time. So I was only a part-time employee. I was working 20 hours a week at this agency. It was great. I had a young daughter and I was spending the other time raising her. And part of what really got me about working at this agency is that it felt really out of alignment values wise
with who you are.
With the way that they were running the business and the clients that I was seeing and the way that it's not the way that they treated the clients, because they didn't treat the clients badly. And their model wasn't working, at least in my opinion, because the recidivism rates were so high. And so I started looking around, and I felt true jealousy and envy when I was looking around on the website and seeing all of these, clinicians who were filled up with private practice. And of course, because of the news feed and the algorithms, I started getting all of these ads for coaching. And I resisted all of those ads for 6 months solid. I was like, no, I can figure this out.
I can do this. I can read a book.
This.
I can surely I can figure this out.
Sure. Yeah. And I did. It's funny because I actually bought 2 books, like The Essentials of Private Practice.
Yep.
I
have a whole bunch of those.
A whole bunch of those.
Yeah.
But really what drove me to get a coach is that I finally wanted to be successful. And I knew I had it in me. And the reason why I knew I had it in me is because I had done successful work with clients. So part of my
Mm.
ability to feel confident enough to try it again is that my clients were shifting, changing, and healing, which is
Mm.
the whole reason why I came into this field. And in terms of working with clients individually, and I'm like, well, if I can do this for someone else, then I can do this for myself. And
I love
now
that. So what hold on. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you that I was going to do this, but I'm going to interrupt from time to
I
time
love
because
it.
there are just moments here that I really want to sort of highlight. I want people to catch this when they're listening because it's so easy to gloss over it. Um,
Right.
and there are these little nuggets of wisdom that you're dropping that I just really want to capture. So this comes back to believing in yourself. So I love the fact that you made this. Y'all can't see me, but I'm talking with my hands because if I don't move, I'm going to put my hands down now. Sorry. I just realized what I was doing. What I love about this is that for so many healing arts folks, we are so tender-hearted and we often believe in our clients more than we believe in ourselves, right? So we pull on them we're like, we pour into them. You can do this. You've got this. I believe in you. I see what's possible for you. And we will not let go. By golly, we will go with them as far as they're willing to go. But we don't treat ourselves that way. We don't call ourselves that way, which is also, I think, why we need coaches. But what you did, the fact that you said, look, clinically, I'm good. People get better. People get better. People get better when they work with me. So clearly I've got something. Just the fact that I haven't figured out the business part yet doesn't mean all the bad things. I'm dumb, incompetent. I can't handle this. I'm not cut out for this. It's just another skill set. Sure, I will learn this one way or another
Right.
because
That's
I'm a
right.
good therapist. And if I'm a good therapist, I can learn how to run a business.
Exactly.
I love that. That's so powerful.
One of the things I'm so appreciating about our time together so far, Wendy, is these interruptions where you really seem to what you're doing that is so encouraging for me. It almost makes me want to cry a little bit, is like you're
Mm,
pausing me and being like, you kept coming back and you had confidence in yourself and you trusted yourself. And I didn't realize all of the things. I mean, I know it in this sort of like broad kind of amorphous way, but you're
yeah.
going, no, you did this and this
Yeah.
is what got you here. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's really important for your listeners to hear, because you we can't see ourselves because we're living in ourselves. And when someone outside goes, and this is part of how I made the leap from agency work to private practice, is my reputation at my agency was really strong. And
Mm,
I was invited to mentor new clinicians and I was really good at it. And those clinicians really liked it. And I just sort of kept getting this feeling of like, yeah, I actually really know what I'm doing.
yes.
And that's something
Yes.
that we as clinicians, as you were saying, we can pour all of that belief and, encouragement into our clients, but we don't do that ourselves. And when I think
Mm.
about it, it's actually one of my superpowers. It's
Ah,
one of the things I really know how to do, which is like believe in myself. And one of the things I do that I'm going to be, that I teach and that I can talk about right now really quickly in my business coaching program is like I ask clinicians, like, what have you done successfully so far? What trainings have you completed? What major traumas or big life experiences have you had to overcome, right? And there's a series of things so that clinicians really understand exactly the unique gifts that they're
yeah.
bringing to the table. And I
Yeah.
have learned how to do that, I think, just automatically, because frankly, especially because I'm somatically trained, it felt way better to be self-loving than it was to be self-negating.
Well, there's a thought. It feels so much better to be self loving than to be self negating. There's a quote. It
I mean, but it's so true. And that's
is
one of the
so
gifts of
true.
somatic training is like I
Yeah.
can feel like my chest expand and my
Mm,
chin come up when I'm like, you know what, Myra, you've done really hard things in your life prior to even being a clinician. Like you can
yeah.
do this. This is not nearly as hard as all the stuff you've had
Yeah.
to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Whew. And then I can do this and I don't have to do it all by myself.
that's
So
right.
part of my learning that I can do this is knowing when to go get the help that I need to do it.
Yeah.
So you made the decision to jump into coaching and I don't know who you've worked with or what that experience has been, and you don't necessarily have to share that if you don't want to. But I know that for myself, like the very first coach I ever hired was for $300 a month back in the early 2000s. And I couldn't
Uh-huh.
believe I was paying that much money. And now I could like probably buy a small house for the money I've spent on coaching.
Exactly.
It's kind of, it's insane. And I'm curious about like what was, because I also see this as a block for a lot of healing folks that we want to go to training where I pay $125 for a full day workshop. And that's not what coaching is like. Like it's a pretty significant investment if you get somebody good. So
that's right.
How did you, or was that a challenge for you? Or are you just one of those people like you just, when you know that you need it and you don't think twice about that leap into paying and hiring and investing in a top level coaching? Because clearly the coaching you got has served you really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I had to overcome was, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, so definitely guide me if I'm not.
It's just a big decision to make, to spend that kind of money on coaching, which people are so reluctant to do. So
they're so reluctant to do. So one of the things, and I think maybe most listeners know this, but if they don't, I'm just going to say it because it was a basic principle I had to understand and has served me for my entire career. But there's a difference between investment and cost. Yes. A cost is something that you just don't get back. I go out to dinner, that's a cost. Apart from filling my belly, it doesn't do anything else for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But when I invest in coaching, my return on investment, and I'm talking like this now, but I didn't think it back then, I needed to make at least 10x on my investment. And my initial investment was, I think it was $1,800 or $2,200. Like, I get, like, compared to what I pay now for coaching as well, that's nothing. That's like a drop in the bucket. And I don't say that to be weird or rude, but it's just true. I've invested so much. Yeah. And that's one of the main principles that I had to learn is like, okay, Maira, and this was the motivator for me. For me, if it was like, if I'm going to plunk down a couple $1,000s, you better damn well believe I'm going to show up and I'm going to do everything this coach says. And I'm not going to question. I'm not going to be skeptical. And I'm also, one of my other superpowers is I'm really good at being in beginner's mind. I'm really clear about the things that I don't know. And it was so clear to me, even though I didn't know it for 6 years when I was failing in those other 3 practices, I just didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah. And it was really important. And that coach definitely launched me. And that then became a thing that I invested in yearly. Right? That investment versus cost concept. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like the first time I ever used Google ads, like my coach was like, no, you need to spend like this much money on Google ads. And I was like, oh my God. And then we did the math. He's like, Maira, if you get one client out of spending $500 on Google ads, this is how much money you stand to make. And I was like, oh,
look at that.
I get that money back, which is why it's an investment.
This is the key. This is the key. Yes. Yes. I remember the first time I hired a coach at a pretty high level, and she said, my goal is for you to make that money back in 90 days. And I wasn't thinking that way at all. I wasn't even thinking about making it back at all. I was just thinking about what am I going to learn from being here and how cool it is to be here. And when she was like, I was like, oh, that's a thought. Yeah, that would be great. And of course that does happen. Yes, I did. But it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it takes a year to make that money back, or 2. I mean, lots of things happen, but that was huge. So you have, I also wanted something else I wanted to say. Sorry, this is the way my mind works.
I love it. We're just following each other.
It drives people crazy sometimes. Like, finish the sentence, Wendy. Finish the thought. You said, you keep talking about your 3 failed practices. And what flashed into my mind a minute ago was that was 3 experiments, 3 opportunities to learn what didn't work, 3 ways to test ideas. All of those were, I know that failure works to use that language, but I actually would not call it that. I would call it 3 attempts before I finally figured it out, before I learned
That's better language. I appreciate that. I'll take that.
Yeah. Because it's not failure. It's just learning. It's lots and lots and lots of learning.
Yeah. Pivot.
And good Lord. And look where you are now. So fast forwarding, now you've got marketing that works. Somatic Partners is a long way from Chrysalis Rising.
So, right? Somatic therapy partners. I mean, like I'm glad you're chuckling at that, because again, at the time I was like, oh my God, we're going to like lock this down. Chrysalis Rising is going to be so big. And it was like,
we've all done this kind of stuff. I've done it too. We've all done it. It's so pretty.
I know.
Pretty doesn't matter. But you've gone from that to a practice that is super clear, that has a very clear promise of what you can deliver to your clients. Yes. People respond. Now you're learning, you already knew this. You were already, I'm thinking, kind of a natural born leader. You were already sort of in group situations where the person who sort of steps forward, I think. When you thought people would ask you to mentor them, that you were seen as something, right? Yeah. So that's in you already, but taking that to a business setup where you are now responsible for other people's livelihood,
Mm-hmm.
and where I love how clear you were about, I want people to be employees because I am very particular about how things are going to go here. That vision and that clarity about who you as a practice are and what you guys stand for is beautiful. And now, so you're going from that, which is only a couple years old, and now you're beginning to teach other people how to start a business.
Yeah.
That too seems like a big leap to me. So how did you get from one to the next? Like, cause you're in my mind, like you said, I love the toddler baby business because I think that's a really good analogy. You've got a toddler and you're teaching other people how to parent already. Where'd that come from?
I know. I mean, I'm kind of chuckling and shaking my head a little bit because this is the impulsive side of me that's like, this would be fun.
Mm.
And, one of the things that I teach my clinicians, and we might unpack it, but the soul of any business, in my opinion, has to be bound with joy, meaning that the container has to be filled with joy. And I love running my business. I actually really love the business side of things and learning all of the things. And the big leap is because I take a lot of trainings in somatic modalities, and I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with, that are dedicated to clinicians and providers. And the scarcity mentality that seems to be in like double bold, bright neon, all caps letters in these communities drives me nuts. So
yes.
And so, I feel like I know that I'm a very purpose driven person, which is why I'm in this field. And I also want to support clinicians in getting out of that because it's just the air that we breathe in our training.
So
right?
true.
Like at school, in these trainings, like I've been in conversations with clinicians where they're just like, yeah, if you don't accept insurance, you're unethical. And I beg to differ. Like that is, because they're like, well, we've got to serve all these people. And I even have had conversations with the clinicians where they're like, well, I don't want to just work with rich people because I charge a lot for my fees. And I was like, it's really interesting that you say that because like not all of my clients are rich, but what all of my clients are dedicated to their mental wellness. And because they get results and because they know they're going to get a return on their investment, they're willing to pay me premium fees. Right. Like I would not be this successful and able to charge premium fees if clients did not do well.
You're not ripping them off. You're giving them their life back. And they are, and I always say this, we find ways to pay for the things that we value and that mean something, that make a difference for us. Right. We find a way. Yeah. And your clients find a way.
And they find a way. That's right. So I just think it's a really important piece because we have as clinicians, we have so many stories. Like go into any Facebook therapy group and you will read scarcity here. I mean, in literally every single post, right? I read this one post where a 30-year seasoned clinician was selling the benefits of one of those platforms that, you sign up and they get you clients and whatever. And he was saying something like, this is the best that I can, the best that I've been able to get paid at 120 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And like good for everyone who charges that and gets paid that. And I'm also telling you that the ceiling is much higher than getting paid 120 an hour.
Yeah.
That's all. And he was the person that was like, it's really important that we as clinicians and healers don't just serve rich people. And I was like, you are making a lot of assumptions about who I'm serving. And I didn't respond to that, but I was just like, okay, that's your point of view. And
I have heard those very same things. And I have different ways of responding depending upon the situation. But like sometimes when people tell me that they feel like they have an ethical obligation to take insurance, I'm like, okay, then in your practice, you should do that because your ideal practice should work for you. I don't see it that way, but I'm fine if you do. So talk about working in alignment with your values. That's fine. Then do that.
That's right.
But do it in a way that is conscious and intentional and where the math works, and make sure that you're not hurting yourself at the same time. And there are ways to do both. You can run a hybrid practice as well.
That's right.
There's lots of ways. I also feel like when you make good money from people who can afford to pay, who are happy to pay, and who honor and respect the exchange of value they're getting with you, you can afford to turn around and serve people in other ways that aren't as pricey. There are lots of ways to help people.
So
lots of ways. So, and you can do it from a place of abundance in a way that you cannot do from a place of lack. So I'm totally with you on that. Yeah.
1000% in agreement with you, Wendy.
Yeah. So, so seeing you, when you said it's just in the air that we breathe, I'm like, yep, preach it. I call it social work thinking, but and it really challenges people when you start pushing back against that. It really stirs up a lot of feelings.
And it stirs up a lot of feelings.
Yeah. So here you are deciding you want to teach people this. So has that, you've mentioned to me that that's been a process for you to kind of come around to thinking, I can teach people to change the way they think about business. I can teach healers to think differently. Tell me about that, like what that's been for you personally. Because this is quite a journey for you, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I mean, we're on the journey the whole time, but I'm the kind of person that I really seek out novelty. I remember taking some kind of personality quiz, and there was a thing for novelty seeking, and out of 100, I scored 99, which means that I really like new things. And part of what I know about myself is that I can get bored after 3 to 5 years of doing the same thing. Now, the good news is that I'm not bored doing my clinical work because I love it. I mean, when I'm working from a somatic perspective, I mean, the entire universe that is in someone's body that makes up who they are is infinite in terms of its capacity to explore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was telling you before we actually began the podcast that last summer in June, I started a coaching program to learn how to launch an online course. And I only had 6 months in which I could, basically do this, but, follow the teaching center and do all of that kind of stuff. And I came up with so much resistance that I dropped out of that program for 3 months and didn't do anything with it.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like, and this is a new phrase that I learned from another coach. She said, new level, new devil.
Yep.
Meaning like when you get to the next, when you're trying to get from one place to the next, whether it's a healing process, but specifically in business, then you get to this new level. And all of a sudden you've got all of this new devil that's here of skills that you need to learn, of things that you need to make happen. Like there's just so many things that go into that. And, during that 3 months, I was so stuck in my head about, because there's lots of now trained therapists who are also teaching, who are offering coaching courses. And the big stopper for me, and this happened when I was early in private practice, here was the thought in my head, like, who do I think I am that I can do this? Like, why do I think I can do this? I'm not trained in marketing. I'm not trained in business. I don't even know how to use an Excel spreadsheet.
This is what you were thinking last summer as you were working on building an online course?
This was what I was thinking when the resistance became so great that I basically stopped working on the course. So I was like,
same thing that you had been through when you were starting your practice. Like it's the same. Yeah. Isn't it funny? So the pattern repeats itself, right? We run into ourselves over and over and over.
Oh, I love how you said that. Yeah, I can't do this. Like, who am I? And, I had like chosen a few, not competitors, because I don't think of it that way, but people who are doing the same thing. And I was just, I would get dejected. That was one of the bad habits I did at the beginning of my career too, was like looking what everybody else was doing. Right. And then thinking, well, I'm not Peter Levine, the founder of Somatic Experiencing. So who am I to like come along and try and do this? It's like, of course I'm not Peter Levine.
No, nor do you need to be. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So, the path has been really winding, and I just launched this past Monday with my coach, and I had to overcome a lot, and I had to employ every single skill at my disposal because I know a lot of them. And, when I finally broke through resistance and I showed up for one of the live coaching calls, I called myself out and I said, "Hey coach, I've been struggling with this. Like I'm really stuck in a place where I don't know why people would want to buy from me." And he just laughed at me in a loving way. And he's like, "Maira, how much do you charge for your sessions? And aren't you in the process of hiring?" And he's like, "I know that you charge way more than anybody in the Denver area." And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And he's like, "You're living proof that you know what you're doing."
Right.
And it was the like I can feel the warmth spreading in my chest in that moment because I could just relax. It was like, right, I don't have to try and be like all these other people. I'm going to deliver what I know how to deliver because
what you know. Yes.
What I know, which is a lot, because otherwise I wouldn't be at the level of success that I currently am.
Yes.
And so, I had to keep forgiving myself, and I had to keep not being hard on myself when I would procrastinate or not do the thing I said I was going to do, until finally I was like, "No, Maira." And again, this is one of my big motivators. I plunked out a lot of money for this coaching course, and I will not let that money go to waste.
Not going to waste it. Yep.
Nope, not going to waste it. And one of the thoughts I had, because, I didn't realize that I knew that I was launching another business by doing this coaching course, but I was also had this other business going on. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I had no idea. And one of the things I told myself was, you know what, Myra, if you never launch, which I think I did already, but if you never launch this, you have learned a lot coming from this course. Like one of the biggest things I got out of this coaching course was I had to look at my path just in the same way that we're talking about it during this interview. I had to look at my path and be like, okay, what did you learn and how did you get here?
Yes.
And it really helped me get clear about how much I know.
Yes.
Right?
So,
because I forget how much I know.
yes. So one of the things that I do with my coaching folks is I always start calls off by asking them what we're celebrating, like what celebrations do they have from the past week? And then we have quarterly retreats, and we begin the retreats all by taking a pretty deep look at what has happened over the last 90 days. What have they accomplished? And it's so much fun when I watch them they start off by like, I don't know. I don't feel like I've really done anything. And then like they'll think of one thing and then they'll think of one more thing. And then it's before you know it, like the list is really, really long. And they're always, every single time they will say to me, golly, I had no idea. You know what? I've actually done a lot. I'm like, I know. I'm glad that you see it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we as entrepreneurs, and if you're in a practice, we are wired a different way. We are always focused on the horizon. We're always focused on where we're going to go next. And we see the gap between where we are and where we want to get to. And we never see how far we've come. So that process of turning around and looking behind you and kind of going, okay, I've got that. It serves you. It's not a waste of time, because in that moment, you are integrating the learning. You're owning it. You're claiming it. I would think, using your language, you would be like taking it into your body, right? And like living it. And if you can do that, you can do the next step. It is always going to be hard. You're always going to be bumping into your next, what I think of your growth edge, the next thing you've got to step into. It's always going to be challenging, always. But y'all, that's what growth is.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. That's the nature of the game.
And that's the nature of the game.
Right. I wouldn't want it to be any other way. If it was any other way, I'd be bored to death or dead. You know? I mean, like, this is what life is, right? It's evolution. It's the evolution of our practice and of ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it occurs to me as you're talking, if there was one habit that like anyone listening, they could start creating, is just take stock of everything you've done in the day, every single day. Because it's no small affair that you returned 10 emails and that you had a consult call that you converted, out of 3, and that 3 out of 3 in that day. And again, like, I just love how clear you are, about your perspective of wanting to support the people that you work with, the clinicians, in really taking stock of how much they know, because we forget. And you've been doing that with me this entire interview. Like, hold on a sec, you did what? You kept coming back after 3 practices. And I was like, yeah, I did do that. Like, I could have quit. That would have been an easy thing for me to quit and just work for an agency for the rest of my life.
Right.
So it is a really important skill. It's like, okay, what do I know and how much have I done? Okay, great. I've done a lot. And then to feel that in the body, and really from the somatic perspective, when we are feeling empowered or in flow or aligned, it's a sense of expansion. It's a sense of softening, and it's a sense of settling down in your body. Yes. And I look for those cues, because those are the experiences I want to reinforce, not the shame-based one, not the fear-based one, not the worry, but like, okay, I was scared, but I did it anyway. I did the thing. I called my coach and I just said, listen, I'm stuck. And he did this. And I was like, okay. And then I started again, which is exactly what happened with this coaching course. Like, as soon as he said that, I don't recommend this, but I was probably working 12 to 14-hour days just to try and catch up on all of the stuff that I should have been doing or wanted.
It's like a sprint. We'll call that a sprint.
A little bit of a sprint.
Not something you want to keep going, but every now and then you have to do a sprint. Yeah. So there are lots of little things here that I also think are worth highlighting. One is that, again, I mean, when you said I could have just stayed with an agency, I'm thinking, I don't think you could have, actually, because I think this is your spirit, is like, it's like the blade of grass pushing through concrete. Like, you're going to go one way or another. Like, you're not going to stop. I think those of us who are wired this way, we can't not do this, right?
Yeah,
we just can't. So I love that. And I want to respect that and honor that and notice that. And again, in the coaching thing, you dropped out, but you got back in again. Here is the thing that I think is important about that, is that accountability is important. Having somebody outside of ourselves that can say, why aren't you doing this? And what's holding you back? Where are you stuck? Because we all get stuck. fears crop up, limiting beliefs crop up, old patterns get in our way. I tend to disappear. So I was in a pretty heavy, serious program for several years. And when I'd have like a big period of success where I was like knocking it out of the park and the money was rolling and it was like, woo, I'm feeling really good. And then I don't know, there'd be a Mercury retrograde and the universe would shut down and nothing would happen. And I would be like, oh yeah, see, that was just all a fluke. I'm a failure. The truth is I can't do anything. And I would just I would hide. I would just disappear. I would stop calling in on the group calls. I would go quiet in the forums. And a few weeks would go by, or 6 weeks, sometimes a long time. And somebody in the program, a coach would say, where are you? What you doing? Come back. And I'm like, I know, but we need that. And from a sort, and it doesn't have to be a coach. It can be from peers who are on a similar path, who are self-aware and who are doing their own work. I mean, that is possible. There are pros and cons to that, but it is possible. But we need people in our life who see what's possible, who can call us on our crap, to be honest. Who can say, you're doing it again. Do you see this pattern? You've been here before. I recognize this in you. Let's shake this, shall we? Because new level, new devil. Let's go tackle it.
That's right.
This is what success looks like. It's really messy and it's exciting and frustrating and great.
The whole thing. The whole thing. I mean, I feel like it's one of the best personal growth paths, not knowing that it was going to be that way when I began, that I've ever undertaken. I mean, I've done a lot of personal growth things. I've gone to therapy and I've done all kinds of things. And boy, being an entrepreneur and reaching levels of success that I didn't imagine, like that first coaching program. I mean, I was full with a wait list within 6 to 9 months. And charging premium fees and not taking insurance. And I was
because you learned so much.
Because I learned so much. And really what it is I kept showing up. Yes. Right? I just kept showing up to do the thing, which is why I didn't quit after, the third failed private practice. Is like, okay, I'm just going to keep showing up. And then I had to also practice not beating myself up, because that's kind of an easy thing to do. And scarcity also teaches us like, okay, like play small. Yes. And as you said, I'm not actually wired to play small.
No, you are so not. That's obvious. I mean, I knew that the minute I met you.
Well, thank you. I will take that.
And I love that, because you will pass that on to your clients as well, right?
Absolutely.
I often say that running a business is like being in therapy, because your stuff is going to show up no matter what, and you have to work through it or you will not last. You
have to work through it.
Yeah, you got to. Right. Over and over and over again. This is so awesome. So today you are teaching other people through the lessons that you have learned yourself, which have been many. You are sharing that spirit of resilience and wisdom that is hard earned. You're passing that on. I love that. You're sharing the techniques and strategies, the just simple business stuff that we don't know. And you also talked to me before in our last call about a new metaphor that you're using that I want to dive in. We've got a little bit of time left, not too much, but I wanted to talk about this new metaphor that you're using before we pull this conversation to a close. You talked to me about sacred geometry as a way that you are thinking about your work these days, which I was captivated by. That's such a cool, it's a little bit like Chrysalis Rising, but not quite. So
totally.
There's a way to do this right. So talk to me about where is that coming from, and what do you mean when you're using that as a metaphor as a business owner?
So I have a really strong spiritual practice. This is a little bit of context. And I was trained in a school called the Modern Mystery School. And I was initiated, which means that in the most basic way, I am a light bearer. So I'm a light worker on this planet. And part of that training, which I don't know a lot about. And so the thing I also want to front load about this is that this is a work in progress, because this concept of the sacred geometry of healing, and the way that I recently presented this to my entire team when we were onboarding the new clinicians. But, the way that I presented it is the sacred geometry of healing at Somatic Therapy Partners. And using the most basic shape. So it starts out with a triangle, it starts out with a square, and then it starts out with a circle. And really where it began with was the truth square. And the truth square actually is a term from straw bale straw bale homes. And so if you don't know a straw bale home, it's a home that is built with straw and hay, and they use a bunch of sand. And I'm totally botching this for anybody that knows about it, but it's basically like it's a more eco-friendly way to build a house. And within a straw bale house, there is a thing that they put in every house called a truth square. And the truth square is a little door that you can open so that you can see the integrity that it was made with straw. So when you open it up, you see that there's straw on the inside,
okay,
right?
Okay. You can see seeing in the walls to see what the walls are made out of.
You can see in the walls. And that started everything. And it was my husband who was telling me about this. And I was like, truth square, like just the name truth square sounds so good. And then I sort of left it alone and didn't do anything with it. And then I think I was in the shower, and all of a sudden it was like sacred geometry, triangle is this, and this, and the square is this, and this, and this. So to be more specific, this metaphor that I'm working with is about the interrelationship and connection of some really basic principles that that runs through the truth of my business. So part of the truth square, and I'm looking at my diagram right now because I'm still playing around with it. But the truth square, the four sides of the truth square are, at least for my business, the culture of our business, the values that our business runs by, the mission and the vision. And that's the truth of who we truly are. And so I'll pause here in case you want to say anything about that, but that's how it began. And then I just sort of built it up and again into this, the triangle represents me, the client, and then the we space that we create. And then the circle, which is the way that I visualize it, is that the triangle is at the top. And the true square is in the middle, which also represents the body. So the triangle represents the mind. The true square represents the body. And then the circle represents the container that we all are holding for our clients. And for me, one of the things about my coaching program is that I'm really wanting to support clinicians in being soul aligned. Versus ego aligned. Because for me, what happened when I was ego aligned, meaning that I was pursuing the money and I was pursuing the status and I was, just like I remember at one point I said to my team, I was like, we're going to be a 10-figure business. Like that is such not that I don't want that, but it's also like, that's such an ego statement to make.
Yes.
And
it's also very masculine.
It's very masculine, right?
Yes.
And it just wasn't working and so what ended up happening is I got burned out. So,
because that doesn't sustain you. That doesn't feed your heart. That never, ever works for us very long. Ever.
No, it never, ever works for us for very long.
Yeah.
And so I wanted my clinicians, and somewhere we're going to put this somewhere, I'll write a book about it. But like, to me, that approach is the way that we need to not need to be as healers, but it's a good format because it's really about the essentialness of it's about the essence of the person showing up with another person who wants to support them in healing. And so, what sacred geometry is really about is that these really simple shapes can create really complex things. And it's not about the complexity, but for me, it's about the artistry and about the building on of basic, foundational things in whether it's in business or in healing that allow me to grow, evolve, and shift and create these sort of like beautiful patterns in nature, right? In nature, that's where it comes from. Sacred geometry comes from in nature.
Right.
And, what I can tell you as I'm talking about it is that when I can talk about it but the feeling in my body is just one of expansion and softness and grounding. It's like, it's like a framework that I can use, and my clinicians get the framework because I'm pushing it all the time. So like when I was training clinicians, like one of the things that we do in our weekly supervision meetings in their first 90 days, one of the questions is going to be is in what ways did you uphold or integrate somatic therapy partners' values into your sessions? Because we're super clear about our values, our mission, and our vision, as well as our culture. And so this sort of takes care of the individual aspect of working with clients, as well as as used as a metaphor for my business.
For the organization. Yeah, absolutely. Right. What's going through my mind is you saying a minute ago, I'm not, what's his name, Peter Levine. You were going, how can I do this? I'm not Peter Levine. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're Maira Holzmann. And look, you're creating your own framework.
That's right.
This is going to be your unique framework of how to approach a business. how to approach our work in the world,
That's right.
that you can use the principles of somatic, not of somatic, but the principles of sacred geometry with the way you're thinking about it. I love, and I know that this is beginning. I know you're just beginning to hash this out. I'm like that with mine is the 7 pillars of an ideal practice. And it took me 2 years to come up with that.
That's right.
2 years. And it started with sitting with a sketch pad, sitting around a campfire thinking like, well, wait, what do we have to do? And it takes a while for this kind of thing, but this is your framework. This is what's going to be unique to you. And it's gorgeous. And
thank you.
I love the whole thing of a soul aligned practice versus an ego aligned practice. The way I relate to that is I've never been able to do anything for very long if I was just doing it because it made sense financially.
Agreed.
Just cannot do. I can't sustain
that either.
Right. I can't. I get bored, or it's too hard, or it's not any fun, or it just feels icky. I like making good money. I have every intention of doing that, but that can never be the main thing. I have to be personally, I like to have fun, and I have to feel like I'm doing some good. That's right. Your soul aligned practice is like that. That's been your journey, is learning that. You started off talking about top-down healing.
Yeah.
The same thing has happened to you as a business owner, that top-down didn't do it. You had to sort of come from the center out, right? Look at that. Boom. Y'all can't see it, but she keeps doing it.
You are so sharp, Wendy. I mean, yeah, you are awesome. I really appreciate your insight and clarity. I mean, I'm getting so much from our conversation, and it's just so, like, I feel like we're twinsies in some ways.
Yeah, anyways. I think so. Y'all can't see it, but she keeps doing fist pumps in the air. It's really funny.
All the time.
That's really good. Well, this has just been awesome. So let's tell people who are interested in learning more about your work, either as a clinician or as a business coach. Yeah. And I love the fact that I'm doing a podcast where I can celebrate other coaches. That makes me really, really happy. I love this. This is probably my favorite thing in the whole wide world to do. How can people learn more about you? Where would you like to send them? You're launching a new course. How can they find out about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about my course. So where they can find me is at www.morethrivingtherapists.com.
More Thriving Therapists. Okay. We'll put that in the show notes. Awesome.
Yep, that's right. And so that's for my business coaching course. And if you want to see, for whoever's out there listening, that's, ready to sort of launch into something else, you can check out my website and see what I've built at somatictherapypartners.com. And then you will see the clinical side of me. So there's a clinical side of me, and then there's the business side of me. And I really love both of them equally. And I'm super excited about both journeys. And I'm really ready to support therapists who want to do good, live large, and thrive more.
Absolutely. 100%. We have a similar mission in life.
I know we do. It's so amazing.
We so do. And it's a big world out there. There's a lot of work to do. So I'm happy to have you along on this ride, my friend.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Wendy. It has been a true pleasure connecting with you. The resonance I feel with you is so much. Like, I have no doubt that our paths will cross again. And
I hope so.
You are such a delight as a host. Thank you for being such a great host.
You're awesome. I'll send you your check. Well, I'll tell you what, last thing before we close it. Is there anything that I haven't asked you? Is there anything we haven't said, or anything you want to sort of come back to, that anything you feel drawn to say that would make this interview complete?
One thing I will say, and this is to sort of help scarcity not be such a big thing, is for everyone that's listening, is dream bigger. And what I mean by that specifically is, when I did my first coaching course, my horizon was, here was my horizon: have a full practice, charge what I want, and have a waiting list. And then I did that in 6 to 9 months. And then I realized I didn't actually have a bigger horizon beyond that. So when I hit that, I was like, oh, wow, I don't know what to do from here now. Like, because is this it? Is this going to be the rest of my life? And no one in my field has ever told me to dream big. No one has ever said. And what I'll say about that is, dream bigger in a soul aligned way, because you can manifest and make those things happen, but you got to dream it and know what you want in order to get there.
Oh my gosh. Dream bigger in a soul aligned way.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Maira. This is so beautiful. Thank you so much. I love every single moment of this conversation. And I know that our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. You are just beautiful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy.
And with that, guys, we can begin to wrap this up. But golly, was that not the most amazing conversation? I just love talking to a therapist, a wellness professional, healing arts magician who does so much good in the world, who says, I was not born to play small. and who absolutely holds up a light for all of us to step up into a greater space. We do not serve the world, y'all, by playing small. And she's right. This really is in the air that we breathe. We are challenged not to think this way. And I don't think that helps anybody. I don't think it helps our clients. I don't think it helps our families. And it certainly doesn't help us. And y'all, a healthy healer is really good for a healthy client. So I hope you take as much out of this as I want you to. I hope you will send Maira a note. Find her online, go to her website, send her a note, and let her know what this conversation meant to you. If this moved you in some way, tell her. We don't always hear that, and it's good to know that. Share that with her. And while you're at it, help me out too. If you could go over to Apple Podcasts or to Spotify and share a review of what you get out of this program, that would do my heart some good, and it would help me get this in front of more people. This is a message we all need to hear. So thanks for hanging in. Thanks for staying with me. Thank you for all that you do in the world. And I encourage you to go out there and, like Maira said, dream bigger in a soul-aligned way. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you next time here on Ideal Practice.